The SIU is investigating after a 21-year-old man died following an interaction with police in York Region early this morning. Good afternoon. The incident happened early at an apartment near Evans Avenue and Sherway Gardens Road.
Police have not provided details about the cause of death, but paramedics responded to the area for a person who had fallen from a balcony. CTV's John Musselman has been following the investigation. He joins us live with more. John.
Well, Michelle, we're still trying to piece together what exactly happened here this morning. In behind me, you can see one of three condo buildings here near Sherway Gardens Mall. Now, we'll roll some video here showing you showing the building location in Etobicoke. What we understand from York Regional Police is that they were executing a search warrant here in Toronto in a unit in that building. There was some kind of interaction with a 21-year-old man, and the information we have from paramedics is that that man fell from possibly the 11th floor, landing on the 4th floor terrace. Now, police have not confirmed those details, but residents here say to us that they did see an injured man on the 4th floor terrace. One woman who didn't want to appear on camera says it was her information from a neighbor that the man did fall from the 11th floor onto that 4th floor terrace. He was rushed to a hospital in critical condition. He did not survive. Now, the province's Special Investigations Unit is now in charge of this investigation. We did speak to one resident. Here's what he had to tell us just a short time ago.
Early in the morning, I heard just a thump or some sort of a crash, some sort of a noise I couldn't quite recognize. I didn't really think much of it at the time, but I did hear some neighbors' dogs barking for a bit. And I just assumed maybe it was some construction, early morning construction or something. But it was kind of abnormal. I'd never heard something like that, particularly that time of day.
Again, we're still waiting for more information from the province's Special Investigations Unit. York Regional Police are still here on the scene as well. We'll have much more on this story on CTV News tonight at 5 and 6. Reporting live at the scene, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, John. Peel Regional Police are hosting more than 400 delegates from across North America at the Safety of Our Cities conference.
What it really highlights is the issues that we're facing locally are happening across North America. The reality is that other urban centers throughout North America face the same issues and what those chiefs are bringing to the table. And we have chiefs from Miami, Dallas, Vancouver, Nashville, and Albuquerque, amongst so many other chiefs from across Canada, coming to speak about what they've learned, some of the trends that they're seeing when it comes to data and how we use data to support some of the strategic decisions that we make, and also to see what we're doing when it comes to collaborating with partners across the sectors.
The event, which runs until Wednesday, brings together representatives from several sectors, including policing, social services, government, and the private sector. Discussions will center on how to address safety challenges being faced by communities across the continent.
The OPP are investigating a fatal crash involving a motorcycle on Highway 403. Emergency crews were called to the highway near Waterdown Road in Burlington around 9:45 a.m. Life-saving measures were performed, but the man was eventually pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of this crash remains under investigation.
A Brampton city councillor remains at odds with the city's bylaw enforcement over one of his properties.
The site is in a state of disrepair, and attempts to bring it into compliance have gone unanswered. CTV's John Woodward has been following this story, and he joins us live with more. John.
Michelle, we have new documents that show the property has a demolition permit as well as new fines, and it's something the councillor, Gurpartap Singh Tour, does not seem to want to talk about.
This house on Brampton's Queen Street is boarded up. Its gate chained closed, barrels sitting out front.
It's been an eyesore for several years now.
But neighbors say that's not the worst of it. City records have shown indications of squatters and rats. An investigation by CTV News in the spring showed repeated attempts by city staff to get the property cleaned up. One issue, it's owned by a numbered company. One of the two directors is Brampton City Councillor Gurpartap Singh Tour. Tour faced 29 fines as of May, adding up to $12,500. In records obtained by CTV News, officers pleaded with him, writing, "Gurpartap, what is it going to take to get you to bring your property into compliance? Do you not have respect for the city and its bylaws?" Tour's response, How about you stop harassing me at work? Let's start there. That officer filed an integrity commissioner complaint. He was then removed from the file. A supervisor visited in June and wrote 4 more tickets, though the city of Brampton redacted how much those fines are worth.
None, that motion carries. Thank you once again.
Tour chaired last Wednesday's Brampton City Council meeting. That's where we caught up with him. Councillor Tour, John Woodward from CTV. Councillor Tour, we're hoping to talk to you about your property.
Talk after the council meeting.
We've been waiting here for some time and we've been emailing you for a while. We're hoping to talk to you now. Tour said he'd deal with us after the council meeting, but didn't show. That was more than a week ago, with no response, despite emails and texts.
He's previously denied he used his council position to put himself out of the reach of property standards. The documents show Tour has received a demolition permit. An engineer's letter says the structure is not stable. It's unclear when it will be demolished. A sign outside the property says it could be part of a new development.
The day that I see the machines here knocking this down, we're going to be very happy people.
The neighbors hoping that will be soon.
Now, Tour has said he paid the previous fines, but as for the new fines, we just don't know. We've asked the city, haven't yet heard back, so we may have to file a third Freedom of Information request. Reporting live from Brampton City Hall, I'm John Woodward. Back to you.
Thank you, John. On the federal front, voters will be heading to the polls in 2 by-elections today, which could have major impacts on whether there is a federal vote before the end of the year. As MPs return to Parliament today, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he wants to make sure they are not sitting for long.
Canadians cannot wait. They need to vote now for common sense Conservatives, and Jagmeet Singh needs to vote with us to trigger a carbon tax election now.
Poilievre told his caucus this weekend the carbon tax and the economy are his top priorities as Parliament resumes. He's calling on the NDP and the Bloc Québécois to back him in a non-confidence motion to topple the government. Neither party has committed to supporting the Conservatives. And for more on the situation on Parliament Hill, we're joined live from Ottawa by CTV's Rachel Aiello. Rachel, can you explain the impact today's by-elections could have on a non-confidence vote?
Yeah, good afternoon. So in a minority dynamic, every vote and every seat in the House of Commons matters. So there are key fights happening tonight in these 2 by-elections. One in Montreal, the Liberals are looking to hold on to a long-time Liberal-held seat. They are fighting off contenders from the Bloc and the NDP. Meanwhile, over in Manitoba, the NDP are hoping to hold on to a long-time New Democrat seat. So how this is going to play into potential non-confidence dynamics could be that if it doesn't go these parties' way, they're big tests for both Trudeau and Singh. Is there a revived push from dissenters within the Liberal Party to see the Prime Minister go? Could they threaten that they would vote in a non-confidence motion when the Conservatives bring one forward? These are all the dynamics that are at play because the NDP pulled out of that 2-party deal. It is a true minority dynamic on the Hill. And we've been hearing all morning today from MPs and party leaders about what their priority is going to be. The Bloc are a big contender heading into this new sitting, and they are also seeming a little bit eager for an election, even though they are interested in being the Liberals' dance partner.
The Liberal government, as you said, is now operating in minority territory. What are the priorities for them this legislative session, and can they accomplish them?
So what we've heard this morning is that the Liberals have brought forward this new housing affordability promise, specifically targeting mortgage accessibility. So that really struck me because we're hearing from the NDP, the Bloc, other parties that they are saying housing affordability is going to be a key focus this fall. And clearly the Liberals need support to pass any of their initiatives, not just to hold on a confidence vote, but to pass any piece of legislation. So by them taking this step today, focusing on housing affordability was the first indication that they are looking to play ball with the other parties in hopes that in that first chance they'll have another party come to their aid and keep this parliament going. Right now, it's case by case, vote by vote, and there's questions on how early that early election could come. Right now, I'm not sure it's going to be the fall. Poilievre's not going to get that first chance on a non-confidence vote until the weeks ahead. And then from there, many opportunities, many confidence votes could come. Big one would be around springtime in the budget.
CTV's Rachel Aiello reporting live from Ottawa today as Parliament resumes. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Canada's housing crisis is weighing on the Liberals politically. And today, the government announced new measures it says will make home buying easier, and some mortgage rules are being relaxed.
Ensuring that young Canadians who want to buy a home can do that, that the dream of home ownership remains in reach for our younger generations. And that's why we're making some really significant changes today.
Effective December 15th, the cap on insured mortgages is being increased to $1.5 million from $1 million. The finance minister says that will help more people buy a house with a minimum down payment already required of 5%. Purchasers will also be able to take out loans for a 30-year period if they are a first-time home buyer or if someone is buying a newly built house. Previously, the 3-decade amortization period was limited to first-time purchasers buying newly built homes. Still to come, a suspect is in custody following another attempted assassination of former U.S. President Donald Trump. We'll have the latest on the investigation a little later in the show.
Ontario's Financial Accountability Office is investigating the Ford government's decision to accelerate the expansion of alcohol sales in this province.
The deal, which now sees products sold in corner stores, involved a payment of up to $225 million to the beer store. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has been following this story and joins us live with more details. Siobhan.
Well, Nathan, this has been a controversial plan in large part because of that money you mentioned that is out the door. So the budget watchdog is now prepared to take a closer look. The Financial Accountability Officer is just starting to dig into the numbers at the request of the Liberals. The Liberals say that that process is important for transparency's sake. They want to understand just how much taxpayer money is being used to accelerate this plan, get alcohol into convenience stores a year early. So far, we know about the $225 million, but they want to know if there's more, especially thinking of things like foregone revenue by the LCBO. The FAO hopes to have this report done in the early part of next year, but they say that is contingent on cooperation from the government handing over the documents that the FAO needs.
We know that this government often, stretches out and delays requests for freedom of information, and so this is an example where it might actually hurt their own interest to provide that information. So I think they will be watching this carefully. We know that the large retailers who will benefit from this, the convenience stores who will benefit from this, they have commercial agreements. Those are things that the FAO says they cannot disclose commercially sensitive agreements. But they are confident that they can get the information that they need.
A spokesperson for the Minister of Finance says they look forward to the FAO's report. The government's also confident that LCBO revenues will continue to grow as they take on a new role as the exclusive wholesaler of alcohol for retail, restaurants, and bars. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. The amount of COVID-19 spreading in Ontario is trending upwards as we head into the fall. The Ministry of Health released its latest update on the virus, covering the first week of September. Looking at the rate of positive COVID-19 cases, that figure was considered high at 17.4%. 626 hospital beds were occupied by COVID patients and 5 died. Health experts forecast an increase in respiratory virus spreading as temperatures drop and people spend more time indoors. The province has said it expects shipments of the updated COVID-19 vaccine by early October, following approval by Health Canada.
The Ontario Medical Association is pushing back against a move to allow pharmacists to diagnose and treat more ailments. The OMA's president says doctors receive thousands of hours of training and says pharmacists may not be able to assess more complicated illnesses, which could be signs of a serious condition. Meanwhile, the CEO of the Ontario Pharmacists Association calls the suggestion of an increased risk to patient safety, quote, misinformation. The Ontario government is looking at further expanding pharmacists' ability to treat ailments to include things like sore throats, mild headaches, fungal nail infections, and nasal congestion. Ontario is looking to the public for help in shaping its school curriculum, sending out a survey to gauge what life skills should be taught in the classroom.
Some suggestions include things like first aid, how to change a tire, and tips on how to shop on a budget. CTV's Heather Wright has the story.
Reading, writing, repairing a tire. Ontario is revamping its curriculum and wants input about what should be taught in its classrooms. A survey out this week is looking for feedback on practical life skills students should learn at school. Things like how to change windshield wiper blades, sew a button, and basic first aid.
Do you learn any of these things in school?
No.
Do you think you should?
Yeah.
because I want to be a nurse, and I think having first aid would be really helpful.
Ontario schools already teach some of these skills in family studies or home economics, but those classes aren't a requirement to graduate and not everyone takes them.
It's definitely not your grandma's home ec.
Micheline Gallant is with the Ontario Family Studies and Home Economics Educators Association and says they welcome adding more and varied life skills to the curriculum, which already includes how to prepare meals on a budget and how to shop more sustainably.
So how do we actually help students learn to repair clothing or to purchase clothing that is good quality?
But in a province where school resources are stretched thin and curriculums are already jam-packed, finding funding and a place for these courses is a challenge.
The devil's in the details, right? And implementation is something it's very important.
The Ontario Public School Boards Association hopes to work with the province on implementing changes to ensure they are tailored to the needs of different boards and that there's proper instruction and facilities to make them worthwhile.
A lot of schools in our boards, they don't have the capacity physically for auto mechanics or even for a home economics class.
Anyone is welcome to weigh in and answer this questionnaire, which will be open until October 1st. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
An Ontario school board is facing scrutiny following an expensive trip to the city last month. 18 executives with the Thames Valley District School Board spent more than $38,000 on a strategic planning session at the Marriott Hotel downtown. The board is currently dealing with a $7.6 million deficit. Ontario's Education Ministry is now set to conduct an audit of the school board's finances. Well, it's looking less likely that the Eglinton Crosstown LRT will open in 2024. Work is continuing on the long-delayed project, with the CEO of Metrolink saying major milestones have been achieved over the summer.
At the end of July, we completed the stress test where we ran 75% of the fleet in 28 train formations for 4 days continuously, to test that the infrastructure readiness is at a level of acceptability for us to start training of the TTC drivers. And the tests weren't perfect, but it went exceptionally well. Lots of learning, things to fix, and for a stress test at that stage of the project was a really good stress test.
Metrolink says it and the TTC began training for operator drivers for the crosstown just over a month ago. Verster has said he'll only reveal an opening date for the future East-West line 3 months in advance of it actually accepting riders.
And a note for subway riders, there will be early closures on a portion of Line 1 starting tonight. Service between York Mills and St. Clair stations will end at 11 p.m. from today through to Friday for track work. Shuttle buses will be running instead. The TTC says regular service will resume each morning at 6 a.m.
We have more news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. Another great start to the work week, lots of sunshine, and it's quite warm on this mid-September day, feeling like midsummer. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current condition. Jessica, no complaints from me.
Listen, if you like the heat, the forecast over the weekend was fantastic, and it really does continue almost right through to the end of the month. We're holding on to this above seasonal trend with no real change in the foreseeable future. We had a northerly wind this morning. We're more southerly now. The fog we had early on continues to burn off, and we have another really beautiful day. Winds are kind of northerly still to get the midpoint of the day going. They become more southeasterly the further into the afternoon we go. Temperature-wise, it's still really nice. We're already in that mid-20 range, feeling into the low 30s. And it only gets warmer as we head in towards that second half of our Monday. Temperature-wise, through the islands, it's a little cooler, but it still feels really warm with that humidity. Through Pearson, we're at 27 already, feeling like 30. And our daytime high today, 27, 28. And that humidex value, I feel, is going to rise as we head in towards the afternoon into that kind of mid-30 range. So again, if you like the heat, you don't have to get out of the kitchen. You're just going to have to maybe put on some sunscreen, drink a little extra water, because it's not going anywhere. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast as we tiptoe into the middle of the month. But right now, it's back over to Michelle.
Thank you, Jess. A verdict is expected today in the sexual assault trial of former Vice Admiral Hayden Edmondson. Edmondson was the head of the military's personnel in 2021 when he was accused of sexually assaulting a woman while they were deployed together in 1991. He stood trial in February, but a verdict has been delayed twice, including last month, when the judge stated his decision had not been finalized. Edmondson pleaded not guilty, testifying he never had sexual contact with the complainant.
The latest phase of a federal inquiry into foreign interference is set to begin in Ottawa today. Several weeks of hearings will focus on the ability of federal agencies to detect, deter, and counter foreign interference. Earlier this year, the Prime Minister and key government officials took part in hearings which explored allegations that China tried to meddle in the 2019 and 2021 federal elections. An interim report stated Beijing's actions did not affect the overall results of those votes. And there's an ongoing investigation following another apparent attempt to assassinate former U.S. President Donald Trump.
This incident happened while the Republican presidential candidate was golfing in Florida yesterday afternoon. The suspect has now been identified as 58-year-old Ryan Routh of Hawaii. Social media accounts in his name suggest he was a strong supporter of Ukraine in its fight against Russia's ongoing invasion. Several items were found shortly after the incident at a golf course in Palm Beach, including an AK-47 rifle, 2 backpacks, and a GoPro camera.
Thankfully, because of good tactics, stopping the car, felony stop, getting him out of the vehicle, coming back to us, we were able to stabilize the scene without any further violence.
Security was still heightened outside Trump's golf course this morning. On Sunday, Secret Service agents were accompanying Trump as he was golfing at his Florida golf course when one agent who was working ahead noticed a gun barrel in some bushes and reportedly opened fire, but the suspect fled. Shortly after, police spotted him on an interstate, and he was taken into custody without incident.
The U.S. Coast Guard is holding hearings in South Carolina looking into the Titan submersible implosion. The experimental underwater vehicle imploded in the summer of 2023. It was on its way to survey the wreckage of the Titanic when it experienced a catastrophic failure. All 5 people on board were killed, including Stockton Rush, the co-founder of the company which owned the Titan. And CTV's Scott Hurst has been following the hearings and joins us live with more details. So what are you expecting to hear today, Scott? Who will be providing testimony?
Nathan, this is an important new stage of the investigation. For the first time, this is public hearings on the disaster, and already in the first day of 2 weeks of public hearings, we're getting some new information. The process of identifying the remains explained with the use of DNA to match human remains at the wreckage of the Titan submersible to the deceased crew members. In opening presentations, the Air Force medical examiner, this was how it was explained, positively identifying the DNA profile of the 5 victims. Now, this is an important stage of the investigation because we're going to hear from roughly 24 witnesses who will testify, including former employees of OceanGate, the underwater exploration company that operated the submersible. Experts say this is a critical step to understand what led to the underwater disaster and what could be done to prevent it from happening again. You remember, obviously, initially when it was first reported overdue, this set off a flurry of rescuers on ships and planes and other equipment to an area about 700 kilometers south of St. John's, Newfoundland. Those on board, as you mentioned, Stockton Rush, co-founder of OceanGate, a veteran Titanic explorer, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, 2 members of a prominent Pakistani family, a father and son, and a British adventurer. Now, the main focus of the investigation is to find the facts, but the chairman of the Marine Board of Investigation says they can make a recommendation to the Department of Justice if they deem any actions criminal. Here's more from the chairman of the Marine Board of Investigation.
These proceedings are not just a formality. They are a critical step in our mission to understand the contributing factors that led to the incident, and even more importantly, the actions needed to prevent a similar occurrence. The board is absolutely committed to identifying those safety gaps and recommending improvements so that no family will have to endure such a loss again.
Now, Nathan, the Marine Board of Investigation is the highest level of marine casualty investigation conducted by the U.S. Coast Guard. And so over the next couple of weeks, it is 2 weeks of public testimony that could provide some key details into what happened and eventually stop something else like this from happening in the future.
And right, there's also this pending lawsuit by the family. What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, there's also this pending lawsuit, a civil lawsuit of more than $50 million U.S. filed by the family of the French explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet. And so this is, as I mentioned, $50 million U.S. civil lawsuit against the submersible owner OceanGate. In the lawsuit, it states the crew aboard the submersible underwent terror and anguish before the sub imploded, and the operator was guilty of gross negligence. The lawsuit blames the implosion on the persistent carelessness, recklessness, and negligence of the company. The lawsuit was filed in King County, Washington, which is right in the Seattle area where the company operated. OceanGate has declined to comment on the lawsuit at this time, Nathan.
All right. CTV's Scott Hurst on the Titan submersible hearings. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Well, people across the country laced up their shoes this past weekend to take part in the annual Terry Fox Run.
CTV's Raheem Ladani has more on the ongoing effort in support of cancer research.
Give me a T! T!
This energized and enthusiastic group in Peterborough have all showed up to show their support for
Terry Fox!
Communities across the country are lacing up their runners for the annual Terry Fox Run. And many, including Scott O'Leary, are also wearing a red shirt, a symbol that they themselves have a personal diagnosis of cancer.
My journey began when Terry's ended in 1980. I was 6 years old and had bone cancer, and then again when I was 14. And then 2 years ago, I ended up with colon cancer and stomach cancer. Then last Christmas, we found out that it's now gone to my liver. I'm currently stage 4.
This is the 44th Terry Fox Run. And for 43 years, O'Leary and his family have been attending the event. This year, they've raised $11,380.
I got Hughes' sport team. They're always here for me.
Just like O'Leary, Terry Fox also had a strong support system when he dipped his artificial leg in the Atlantic Ocean on April 12, 1980. For the next 143 days, he drew strength from the entire country, who connected with his spirit and determination in the Marathon of Hope. To date, the Terry Fox Foundation has raised over $900 million. Last year alone, nearly $44 million of that was invested in Canadian cancer research.
I have a tennis ball in my pocket because I had a tumor the size of a tennis ball in my left leg.
Through personal stories, pictures, and newspaper clippings, Terry Fox's legacy lives strong. And in Nichols Oval Park, his impact continues to be passed down through generations.
We have seen families come in with the kids in the strollers. The kids are coming in pushing strollers themselves. They're married. So we've watched the progression.
And with every run, moving closer to achieving Terry Fox's dream of a world without cancer. Raheem Ladani, CTV News.
As we step into a brand new week, another warm one ahead of us as we continue this above seasonal trend. Lots of sunshine today, but it will be hot out there. So as you spend time outdoors, water is going to be key along with sun protection. Into the afternoon, sitting around 27, maybe even 28, and that humidex value continues to rise into the mid-30s. It's hot, but not quite heat warning criteria hot. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast as we settle into the middle of September.
The city has provided an update on measures to ease congestion and keep traffic flowing.
The specific focus is being put on preventing drivers from blocking intersections. CTV's Natalie Johnson has been following this story. She joins us live now with more. Natalie.
Hi, Michelle. This is part of a bigger picture traffic management plan that the city will be unveiling and debating over the course of the next few weeks. And this particular component has to do with, as you say, blocking the box. That is, of course, when a driver enters an intersection without a reasonable prospect of actually making it to the other side, ends up getting stuck at a red light, blocking traffic from all sides to continue to move. It is a major contributor to congestion in the city and slowing transit as well. Right now, the fine for an improper stop in this context is $90. Under the new changes, as a deterrent to drivers, that fine is going up to $450. In community safety zones, that penalty will increase from $120 to $500. The city did require approval from the province to increase the fines. Here's more from the mayor and Deputy Mayor Jennifer McKelvey.
One of the things that infuriate people the most is these drivers that blindly rushed out into the middle of the intersection even when they didn't have room in front of them to get through. And they thought, the light is green, why don't I just move ahead so that I could just get in on it, and maybe I can cut into a different lane. And guess what? The light changes, everybody is stuck. No one is going anywhere.
I'm hopeful that police actually don't have to give a single ticket. That means that the fine is enough of a deterrent that people are thinking twice. They're slamming on the brakes before they roll into the intersection. And it's very inconsiderate, bad behavior to go into an intersection when you can't get all the way through. So I am hopeful that these new fines will act as a very heavy deterrent. We know high fines work. We have seen that with texting and driving.
And of course, the challenge here is that you need officers to issue these tickets for blocking the box, and those officers cannot be everywhere at once. City officials say they are working now with the province to explore the use of automated camera technology to provide these fines to drivers if they happen to be caught on camera blocking the box, though this is still several steps away. A lot of provincial amendments would be required, including changes to the Highway Traffic Act. Reporting live downtown, I'm Natalie Johnson. Nathan and Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. One of the things that can impact traffic is the weather, but we have none of that. What a fabulous weekend. It was so hot at times, and we have more of this heat continuing.
You just said it hot. Like normally I'm thinking it's going to be warm out, warm weather. It was actually hot this morning, like a midsummer day.
It was warm. Even over the weekend going out for walks, like my elbow creases were sweating, the backs of my knees were sweating. It's that kind of heat where you feel like you're in the midst of the summer season. We're by no means record-breaking, but it has been abnormally warm as we've kind of settled in towards, these middays of the September season. Like, we are still very much into summer. We have the astronomical start to the fall season beginning pretty soon, but it still feels like summer. Weather is brought to you by the Presser Law Firm. Injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. Now, we've had a little fog early on this morning. A lot of that has burned off, and we really do step into a hot, sunny, and albeit slightly humid afternoon. We're already kind of sitting at our high for today. We may get up a degree or two warmer, but it really is that humidity that can be quite a challenge. And we're still in that time of year where that heat in your car can be significantly hotter than the weather outside. So it's just that gentle reminder to never leave anything or anybody in the car. We are holding on to this warmth as we head throughout the day. 27 right now. It feels like 30. Ottawa feeling like 32. Winds are feeling like 29. Moosonee feeling like 34. This kind of ridge in the jet stream that's separating the hot air south of us and the warm air the warm air south of us and the cold air north of us, it's really kind of overtaken the province, so we're warm everywhere. Into the afternoon, we really start to see those humidex values climb into that mid-30 range, and they stay there. This evening, we're warm again. 17, we should be at 11. We really aren't losing any of that heat until we get to the middle of the week, and even then it's just closer to seasonal. Holding on to high pressure as we head throughout the day once again. We're looking at a bit of a cold front going through northern Ontario, but it really doesn't come anywhere close to us, and we're just surrounded by a whole lot of high pressure as we head through the next couple of days. Into this afternoon, there's really not much going on in the forecast radar picture. The UV index is pretty high at a 6, so take that into account if you have evening plans. As we make our way in towards about 8 p.m., we'll see some cloud cover start to creep in. We won't see it kind of really overtake us entirely as we head in towards our Tuesday, but we might not see that brilliant sunshine the entire day. Heading in towards Wednesday, we start to see more cloud cover really start to move in. We are watching a system sitting south of us. It doesn't really come close to the GTA, but that leading edge of it is the cloud cover, and that's what we are going to see here in the city and as we head through kind of the majority of Wednesday. This ridge, again, that green line kind of separates. That's that one you want to kind of keep a close eye on when it comes to separating the colder air and the warmer air, and we don't really see any relief for the foreseeable future. So if you were excited for those cool weekends we had a little while ago where we started to feel kind of cozy like fall weather, it's gone. But we hold on to the sunshine and the heat honestly for the next 7 days and as we step in towards the middle and end of the month. Nathan.
All right. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Still to come, the healing power of clowns. New research suggests a hospital visit from a clown can help with recovery efforts. We'll have the details when we come back.
Well, ever since Stephen King wrote the book It, clowns have had a reputation as something to be feared. But a new study shows that for kids in the hospital, clowns are something to celebrate. For more, we're joined by CTV Science and Technology Specialist Dan Riskin. Dan, tell us about this study and what it showed about clowns.
So in a lot of hospitals, they have programs where professional hospital clowns, and it sounds like it's not a real job, but it really is. I mean, these are people who are trained as professional performers. They may have an acting background or a comedy background, and then they take a special, at least 5-month course to learn how to interact with kids in a hospital setting. And they go into these hospitals and they work wonders. And this study really drives home how powerful their presence can be. It was a study where they were looking at kids who were trying to get over pneumonia, a bacterial infection of pneumonia. Kids were on antibiotics, they were stuck in the hospital, half the kids, about 50 kids in the study, half of them got visited by clowns twice a day and half of them did not get visited by clowns. And wow, it made a huge difference. The average stay for a kid was 70 hours in hospital, but if a clown visited them, that was cut down to about 42 and a half hours. So a huge difference. They weren't on antibiotics as long. They cleared the infection more quickly, and they got to go home sooner. So a huge, a huge load off the shoulders of this poor kid, their family, and of course, all the resources that hospital then has available for the next kid become freed up. So really good use of resources and a great sort of endorsement for clown programs at hospitals.
Wow, that's wonderful to hear. The clowns are here to stay. Send them in, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. And don't be so scared of them. I mean, it's, there's plenty to be scared of in hospitals. Clowns are apparently not on the list.
I know. Those ones that we were showing look pretty friendly. Let's get to this next story, and it's one a lot of people might relate to. Researchers think they might finally know why stress can sometimes give us an upset stomach, and the answer might have something to do with our microbiomes. How so?
Yeah, so this is really neat. We all know, well, maybe not everyone, but I certainly do, that we can have the experience that you're about to go on stage, you've got something you're stressed about, and then all of a sudden, well, I need to stop at the bathroom on my way there because there's a lot going on right now. And why is that happening? What is the connection between my stress levels and my stomach? What is the link? And researchers believe in this new paper that it has to do with the way stress affects our secretions of basically the fluids that go into our small intestine and how that changes the whole environment for our gut microbiome. And the gut microbiome, all those bacteria that live inside us that keep us healthy, have a huge impact on our digestive system and also on our immune system. And they have done a whole bunch of studies on mice and looked at the brain and nerves and the stomach lining and all these different pieces of the puzzle. And what it's shown is that when you're stressed, your body just doesn't secrete as much of the fluids into the small intestine. And it's probably just ruining that environment for the bacteria that would keep you healthy. And that's why your stomach gets so upset when you're stressed out.
Wow, I think it relieves a little bit of stress to know that it's not all in our head. There's actually something going on in there.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice when there could be a mechanism that explains it. And one piece of this might be that probiotics could be helpful in those kinds of cases. So if you're doing something that's stressful, you're starting to have stomach trouble, maybe probiotics are something to consider. It's not medical advice at this stage. It's just an inference based on the study, but it can't hurt to have a little yogurt.
I know. Okay, I'm going to help. My oldest daughter could use this. Appreciate that, Dan. Now let's get to this last story, which I know is going to be your favorite because it has to do with bats. This is about how flowers attract bats at night. And I guess when it comes to flowers, we're thinking about bird pollinators like hummingbirds and insect pollinators like bees. But tell us about the bats and the flowers.
Yeah, so there are flowers that open just for bats. They open at night. They're usually white, and they have to attract bats, but they can't use the old tricks that flowers use. A flower normally is colorful because insects can see color, or a flower smells great to attract them with smell. But a bat like the one you see there feeds on flowers, hovers in front of the flowers, but they're doing it at night, and they're finding those flowers via echolocation. And so this new study shows that flowers, in order to attract a bat, have to be built in a way that would make them easy to spot if you were using echolocation. They have to be loud for echoes. And so what they found is flowers that are pollinated by bats tend to have really long stems. They tend to stick out farther away from the plant. And in a bunch of experiments, they had bats go around looking for flowers, and they experimentally changed how long those stems were. And they found that when you had a long stem plant, the bat could find it more quickly. And so it shouldn't be surprising that a lot of the flowers that are pollinated by bats have these long stems. So instead of being brightly colored, they have to be loud for echoes, and it's cool that they are.
Slowly but surely, you're making us fall in love with bats. CTV science and tech expert Dan Riskin, thanks so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Tito Jackson, an original member of the Jackson 5, has died. Tito was the third of the 9 Jackson children, which include superstars Michael and Janet. The Jackson 5 was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997. And they had several hits, including ABC, I Want You Back, and I'll Be There. Tito Jackson was 70 years old. No cause of death has been released, but according to several reports, he suffered a heart attack.
An epic series about the Age of Samurai was the big winner at last night's Emmys, as Shogun took home a record 18 awards.
And Shogun taught me that when people work together, we can make miracle. We can create a better future together. Thank you so much.
Shogun picked up Best Drama, and two of its stars, Hiroyuki Sanada and Anna Sawai, became the first Japanese actors to capture the awards for Best Actor and Best Actress. And Canadian actors Eugene and Dan Levy made history as the first father-son duo to host the Emmys.
If it goes well tonight, my name is pronounced Levy, not Levy.
And if things go south, my name is pronounced Martin Short.
The Schitt's Creek stars both won Emmys back in 2020. This year, dark comedy series The Bear won several big awards.
The Beetlejuice sequel spooked its way to another #1 weekend at the box office.
If you say his name 3 times, he will appear.
Beetlejuice was way out in first across North America in its second weekend with $51.7 million US in ticket sales. Psychological thriller Speak No Evil opened in second place with $11.5 million. Meanwhile, Deadpool and Wolverine slipped to third after dominating the box office on and off since its release.
And TIFF announced yesterday the documentary Russians at War will play on Tuesday after screenings were suspended earlier this week due to security concerns. The film by Russian-Canadian director Anastasia Trofimova sparked protests from Ukrainian groups who say the film amounts to propaganda.
Still to come, Air Canada shares were up this morning after the airline and its pilots reached an agreement on a new contract. Details after the break.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
An ongoing strike by machinists at Boeing south of the border could end up costing the company billions of dollars. According to one analyst, if the strike continues for a month, it would cost Boeing $3.5 billion. Machinists voted 96% against the contract proposal last week and walked off the job. The union says they're ready to get back to the table to come to a fair deal.
TikTok is set to begin its legal battle with the U.S. government over a law which could see the popular app banned. Attorneys for both sides will appear before a panel of judges at the Federal Appeals Court in Washington today. TikTok and its China-based parent company ByteDance are challenging a law which requires them to cut ties or be banned in the United States. The U.S. sees TikTok as a national security threat due to its connections to China. However, the company has argued the law is unconstitutional.
Shares on Canada's main stock index traded close to a record high this morning.
Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. Strength in big financial stocks helped to support Canada's benchmark index this morning. The Toronto Composite slipped from Friday's record high close of just over 23,568, but it was supported by Royal Bank of Canada and Sun Life Financial, which traded at record highs. And CIBC, Scotiabank and Manulife also hit their highest in at least a year. Weakness in tech megacaps weighed on U.S. stocks, with Apple falling 3%. A widely followed analyst warned that demand for the new iPhone 16 Pro model has been lower than expected. TF International Securities analyst Ming-Chi Kuo said demand is down almost 13% from last year's iPhone 15 launch. One problem, the analyst said, is, quote, that the major selling point, Apple Intelligence, is not available at launch alongside the phone. And finally, Air Canada shares rose 3% after the airline reached a tentative deal with its pilots to avert a strike. The pilots are to get a reported 42% compensation raise over 4 years. ATB financial analyst Chris Murray said the deal, if ratified by pilots and the Air Canada board, removes a significant overhang on the shares and, quote, we believe it allows for a more fulsome discussion around the return of capital to investors. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
All right, it's a nice hot summer day.
Oh, it continues, right? This weekend, I mean, this weekend the weather was better than some of the weekends we had in the thick of the summer. And I think a lot of people were just swimming, being outside, doing all the things that you might not expect to do in September.
And I feel like we have this kind of transition where usually in September we get those kind of cooler weekends, it's starting to feel a little crisp. We had one of those the beginning of the month, and then all of a sudden we've really settled into this heat. So I feel like for people who enjoy this warmer transition into the typical fall weather, it's been really nice. We should be sitting around 21 degrees, and we are nowhere near that as we head through the next couple of days. So you have to kind of keep that summer mindset going until the fall equinox begins on the 22nd. As you head throughout your day today, though, it is one of those ones you want to just make sure you are preparing for the heat because it can sneak up on you. It will feel into the mid-30s for a good portion of the day right across southern Ontario. Temperature-wise, we're still sitting at about 27, feeling kind of like 30, but it only gets warmer as we head throughout the day. Maybe you're taking an extra long weekend, or maybe you're heading out early, or you want to get outside this afternoon. It will be fantastic. Now, as we step in towards the week, we see a little cloud cover push in Tuesday, a little more Wednesday as the system sits south of the border. It doesn't really come close enough to affect us, but what it does do is cool us down a little as we get in towards Wednesday to 24, which is still above where we should be. And looking ahead towards the end of the week, it is beautiful. So if you want to get outside, it will be fantastic, literally for the next 7 days.
All right, good to hear. Thank you, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.